a tiny collection of my favorite stories, and I've got a story box next to me with some bags in it with some story ingredients in it. So we'll
Oh,
see how
it's
it goes.
great. So it goes. So it is that time. Ladies and gentlemen, and assembled company, however old you are and wherever you are, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. Louis, I haven't got my hat on because I've got some new headphones and rainbow coloured. And we're really lucky tonight. We've got for our first time on a Friday night, on the Children's Friday night, we have, and can we put our hands together and clap for Sharon Carr?
Oh, thank you so much. That was a really great introduction, John. That's great. Thank you so much to World Storytelling Cafe for enabling me to do this Friday evening, to set up people's weekends, to do storytelling with families and with children. And thanks very much to John Rowe and Michael and Lucy Wood and Ulio for managing everything. My name is Sharon, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour telling stories. Some of my favorite stories. But first of all, shall we say a massive hi to everybody? Shall we just say hi? Because a hi like this. Hi, Louie. Hi. And shake ourselves all up. Shall we shake ourselves all up? Let's shake ourselves all up. Yes. And now we're all relaxed, aren't we? We can take some stories. That's it. Yes. Right. Well, first thing I've got to tell you is I've got a story box here. And the story box is an old writing box, which people many, many years ago, when they were traveling from place to place on horseback or by carriage, they would take a story box with them. And in the story box would be paper, pens, and ink. And they would open it up and they would write their letters and they would write their stories. And somebody, well, who owned this box gave it to me. And they said, can you please continue telling the stories? So in this box, rattled, are some stories because there's some bags in them. And in the bags are the things that make up the stories I'm going to tell you. But first of all, we have to wake up the box because every time I stop telling stories, the box goes to sleep. So what we do is we have to tickle its tummy. And I know that you won't be able to tickle its tummy, but I'll tickle the tummy for. Well, we can do it, can't we? We can think about tickling, and we can tickle the stomach, the tummy of the box. Come on, we're gonna tickle, 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 tickle. Oh! And I think the back box is now woken up. So let's find out what we got inside. Oh, well, we've got 3 stories, and in the box we've got in the bag we've got a little cast iron pot. We have some turtles, and we have an empty bag. And this is the one I'm going to start with because in the empty bag are some wishes. Now, it looks like the color of nothing, doesn't it? But what exactly, and what could be the color of wishes? Could wishes be the color of gold, silver, red? Could wishes be the colors of rainbows? Or could wishes be whatever we think it to be? This is the story of the 3 wishes. There was once a woodcutter and his wife. They were old and been married for many, many years and had no children. But they lived in a little tumble-down cottage down in the deep, dark woods, where the forest is deep, the forest is wide, the forest has many places to hide. And every single morning, the woodcutter would get up first thing in the morning, have breakfast. He'd get his hat, put it on his head, pick up his axe, kiss his wife goodbye, and he would go down to the deep, dark forest, deep down forest, deep, deep, deep. And there he would stay all day, chopping wood to make into logs so that he could take that to market every week to sell. And he could buy a little treat for his wife. So maybe some needles or thread or cloth to make their clothing. They didn't have much, but they had enough and they were happy. But one day the woodcutter was late. Getting up, and he got up and he was really worried, and he put his cap on and he picked up his axe and he kissed his wife goodbye and he said, "I'll see you later, dear." And he went down into the deep dark forest. Where? He went to the forest where he'd never been before. And all day long he chopped wood. He made them into logs, and there he left them, and he began to roll them up into bundles, and put on his back. He was going to sell them in market the very next week. Well, it was cold, and there was a nip in the air, and it pinched his nose, it pinched his cheeks, it pinched the tips of his fingers. And he could see the sun was beginning to set, and he thought, "I want to go home now. I'm tired and hungry." So he picked up his axe, and with his bundle of logs, he started to walk down the path. But this was a part of the deep, dark forest he'd never been to before. And he went down a path that he'd never been down before. And when he came to a clearing, and there, in the middle of the clearing, was the most beautiful tree, a gold and silver tree. It seemed like a magical tree. And he looked at it. Yes, Johnny, shall we say a magical tree, rolling up fingers. And there he looked at it, and he thought, with this tree, he could chop it down, and he could make logs, and they were silver and gold, and he'd get lots of money for it. So he put down his bundle of logs. He picked up his axe, and he was going to go 1, 2, 3 to chop it, when he heard, "Please don't chop down my home." The woodcutter stopped. Where did that voice come from? He raised his axe again, and just about ready to go 1, 2, 3 to chop it, when he heard, "Please don't chop down my home." And there in front of him, he saw a little fairy floating in front of his eyes. "Who are you?" he said. "Oh, I am a tree fairy, and I've lived in that tree for many, many years. It is my home. Please don't chop it down. If you don't, I will give you a gift of 3 wishes, and you will find that on your return home." Well, the woodcutter had a kind heart, and he didn't want to see anybody homeless. So he said, "No, I won't." And the tree fairy, it glittered, it glowed, and it said, thank you so much." And it flew up into the tree and was gone. Well, the woodcutter picked up his axe, he picked up his bundle of logs, and he began to walk out of the clearing, up the path. And he walked and he walked and he walked until he reached his little tumble-down cottage where he lived with his wife. Oh, it was getting cold. Evening had settled. And he rubbed his fingers as he opened the door, went into the little porch, took his hat off, took his jacket off, had put down his axe and his bundle of logs. And there he went into the kitchen, fully expecting to see a wonderfully cooked meal for him. And he went into the kitchen and he saw the fire was burning in the hearth, and he looked at the kitchen table, and there was a bowl full of porridge. The porridge that he'd shared with his wife that very morning, looking stodgy, grey, and cold. Oh! He wanted something lovely and hot and warm to eat, not cold porridge from that very morning. And he said, "I wish I had a fine, fat, sizzling sausage." And there, in front of his eyes, there on the plate was a fine, sizzling sausage like it just come out of the frying pan. Oh! Well, you know what happens when you get very hungry. Your stomach starts making all those funny noises. His mouth started watering. He sat down and he picked up that knife and fork and was about ready to tuck in when his wife came in from outside. She sniffed the air. She sniffed the air again. Sausage! And she looked. at the kitchen table where her husband was just about ready to cut into the sausage. "Where did you get that from?" she said, putting her hands on her hip. The woodcutter said, and he explained that he'd met the fairy in the clearing in the forest, and that he hadn't chopped down the fairy's home, and the fairy had said that because he was so kind, he would give him a gift of 3 wishes that would be there at home waiting for him. And his wife said, "And you wasted our 1 wish on a sausage?" 3 wishes, she said. 3 wishes. Do you know what we could do with those 3 wishes? We could have a mansion. We could travel the world. We could have the most all the gold and silver we wanted. And you wasted 1 wish on 1 sausage? Oh, you silly man! You foolish man! And he got up and he said, "Well, I was hungry and I didn't want to eat the porridge that you put down for me for the morning this morning that we had for breakfast. And oh, you silly woman and you foolish woman!" And they began to bicker and bark and bicker and bark and bicker and bark and bicker and bark. And eventually he got so cross with it, he said, "Oh, I wish that sausage was on your nose." "Oh!" she said, as a sausage was on her nose, just as her husband had wished. "Oh, oh, look what you've done, you silly man." And she pulled and she tugged and she tugged and she pulled and she pulled and she tugged and she tugged and pulled, and she couldn't get that sausage off her nose. "What am I to do?" she said. Well, by this time the woodcutter felt very sorry. He wished he hadn't wished that sausage on his wife's nose. And he said, "We've got 1 more wish," he said. "Very well. I wish that sausage was not on my wife's nose." And the sausage was there back, like the very magic of those 3 wishes, on a plate, sizzling away, just like it had been taken out of the frying pan. And that night, the woodcutter and his wife, oh, they tucked into a wonderful meal of sausage. And they went to bed that night with smiles on their faces and their stomachs full. But you know, even though they had had 3 wishes and they had not used them wisely, it being a story with a bit of magic in it, that 1 sausage became 2 sausages. Those 2 sausages became 3 sausages. And those 3 sausages became 4 sausages. Because it's a story with magic in it, of wishes. And the woodcutter and his wife were never ever hungry again. And that's the story of the 3 wishes from the story box. Well, as we've had a story about wishes, we're now going to have another story from the story box. And I'm going to rattle it again and see maybe what we can get out of it. Because we've tickled its tummy, so it's now wide awake. Oh, and the next one, well, we got some turtles in it. And the turtles, well, this is a story from India. And it's a story of the talkative turtle. And maybe we're going to need a bit of help with this one, because this turtle would talk all day long. It would go yak, 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 chat, 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 jabber, jabber, jabber. And it would go yak, 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 chat, 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 jabber, 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 all day long. Chat, 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 yak, 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 jabber, 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 all day long. And he lived in a pond with 2 other geese. And these geese were the best of friends with him. And the geese never talked, because the talkative turtle would talk, 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 chat, 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 jabber, jabber, jabber. They would talk, 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 chat, 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 jabber, 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 all day long. And he would say things like, Do you know, to the two geese, I met Mrs. Squirrel down the road today, and she was telling me all about her children, the little squirrels who went to school, and the problems they're having at school. And when they get home to try and do their homework, she has to sit down with them, and she has to make certain she does their homework, they do their homework, and they don't, and they complain all the time, and she is just at her wits' end. Or else he might say, "Oh, what a lovely day we have today, with the sun shining high in the sky. Oh, and it feels so hot, and the water is so cool. I'm so lucky to live in the pond with you, aren't you? Don't you feel you're lucky as well? Aren't we really lucky to live in such a lovely, lovely pond?" And the two geese would swim around in the pond, and all they would do with the talkative turtle was nod. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. While he talk, yak, 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 jabber, 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 all day long. Well, one year, the sun had been shining for many, many months, and there wasn't a drop of rain. And that pool where they lived with the frogs and the other ducks and the geese began to get smaller and smaller and smaller as it dried up with the sun shining really hot, as it has been today where I live. And one morning, the turtle, who hadn't noticed anything about the pond getting smaller and smaller and smaller, he woke up, he poked his head out of his shell, and he looked all around. The pond where he lived with the two geese and all his other friends, the ducks and the geese and the frogs, had dried up to a little muddy puddle with him in the middle of it. Oh! He looked all around for his friends. No one was there, not even the geese. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be so lonely, he said. Oh, and what am I going to do? I can't live in a muddy puddle. Oh, where are my good friends, the geese? It was at that point that two geese came flying in, and they landed right next to him. Oh, what am I going to do? He said, look at the pond. Oh, what are we going to do? Where are we going to live? And the one geese, Goosey, said, Turtle, keep quiet for 1 minute and listen to what we've planned. We can't stay here. We know that. And you're our good friend and you're coming with us. What we're going to do is we are going to get a stick. Gander will take one side, I will take the other side in my beak. And you, Turtle, are to bite down hard in the middle of it. But, Turtle, said Goosey, you are not on any account to open your mouth when we are flying high, 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 high in the sky to look for a new home. Because if you open your mouth, you will fall down, 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 and you will hurt yourself very badly. Turtle, can you promise us that when you bite down in the middle of it, you will not open your mouth? Ooh. Well, Turtle, who is only known to just talk all the time, talk, jab, 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 jabber. Oh, he didn't know if he could keep a promise like that. Oh, but, well, he knew he couldn't stay there, so he swallowed hard and said, I promise. So Gander, one goose, got hold of the other one, got hold of the stick with his beak, the other side, and Goosey got hold of the other one with his beak. And Turtle bit into the middle of it. And then he began to take 1, 2, 3 strides. And with that, the geese were flying high, high, high in the sky. Oh, yes, that's it. Let's go flying high in the sky. Come on, we're flying. Oh, and what do you think we can see underneath? If you are Turtle looking down with your one eye, do you think we can see rivers? Can we see valleys? Are we flying over forests, over trees? Well, Turtle, he'd never flown before. And as he held onto that stick, oh, he was looking down and he thought, oh, it looks so beautiful. But he couldn't say anything, could he? Because if he'd opened his mouth, he would fall down and hurt himself really badly. So while he was flying with Goosey and Gander, flying high, high, high. All he could think was, oh, it looks so beautiful. It looks so lovely. I want to say it. Oh, it's so hard not to talk. And they passed over a village. And as they did, people looked up. Ah! And they started pointing. Ah! And they started laughing because they could see the two geese flying on either side of the stick. And in the middle was a flying turtle. And they began to say, ha 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 ha, look at that, a flying turtle. Have you ever seen anything so funny before? And all that laughter drifted up, 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 and it reached the ears of Turtle. And Turtle heard it. And he thought, how rude of them to laugh at them. But he knew he had to keep his promise. He couldn't say a word. So they flew on and on and on. And they flew over another village. And the people looked up and they began to laugh. And they began to point. And they began to say, isn't that funny? A flying turtle. Isn't that hilarious? Ah, ha, 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 ha. And the laughter floated up, up, up through the air, reached the ears of Turtle. And this time he couldn't stop himself. He thought, how rude. And he opened his mouth to tell them off. And what happened? He began to fall, down, 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 down. And he thought, oh no, why didn't I listen to Goosey? Why didn't I keep my promise? I'm going to hurt myself so badly. Oh no, 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 no. And he went splash. What had happened? He hadn't fallen onto the ground hurting himself. He hadn't broken his shell like some stories say. He'd found Goosey and Gander and himself a brand new home, a brand new pond. And there Goosey and Gander came down and they landed on the water. And they said, well done, Turtle. You have found us a new home. Well done. And there Goosey and Gander and Turtle, the talkative turtle, lived there happily ever after. But do you think he learned his lesson not to talk a little less? Oh no. He still talk, 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 chat, 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 jabber, jabber, jabber all day long. Talk, 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 chat, 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 jabber, jabber, jabber all day long. But with Goosey and Gander and with their friends the frogs and the geese and the ducks who had also come to live in the pond, they all lived happily ever after. And that's the end of the story of Talkative Turtle. But you still didn't learn the lesson, did he? Thank you. And now we have a final story from the story box. And Bet's going to give it a bit of a rattle again and find out what the last one is. Ooh. Let's have a look. Well, I think I might have showed you a bit earlier. This is a magical cooking pot. It's a cooking pot inside this little bag. And like I said, it's a magical one. Now, if any of you had a magical cooking pot and you had the most favorite meal in the whole wide world that you wanted to cook in it, or it would just cook, what would be your favorite? How about you, John? What would be your favorite meal out of the whole wide world?
I'm trying to think what Louis would like. Can't see him because he's muted, but I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think in his head. Do you like ice cream, Louis?
Oh,
do you want ice cream?
Do you like ice cream?
Yeah.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Do you like chocolate ice cream?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay. So Louis would like some chocolate ice cream, please.
Okay, we'll have some chocolate ice cream in that pot. Okay. Mine would be, I think, chocolate cake. If I had a cooking pot that could just cook what I wanted, a magical pot would be chocolate cake. That would be. What would be yours, John? We got chocolate ice cream from Louis, chocolate cake from me.
Oh, well, in that case, I go for Black Forest Gatto.
Oh, nice. Black Forest Gatto with a lot of cream, very sweet, lovely. Well, this was a magical cooking pot. And I think what we might do, even though it's meant to be a story about the magical porridge pot, we can put all these favorite foods in there and we can actually maybe make a nice blend, a nice meal. But a little girl called Sarah and her mother, they lived in a tall, skinny house in the center of town. And they lived around a little square where there were all tall, skinny houses. And all the people, like Sarah and her mother, that lived in these tall, skinny houses around this little square in the center of town, they didn't have much money. Sarah's mother used to do lots of knitting and lots of sewing, mending clothes. But whatever she did, she'd get paid for, and that would have to go and pay the bills. Sometimes they'd be lucky enough to maybe even pay for some food. Because very often they would go to bed, with empty stomachs and feel very miserable. But one day, Sarah, who had been helping her mother doing some sewing, sitting inside, had gone out for a little break because it was a fine, beautiful, sunny day, as it had been today where I live. And she'd sat down on the doorstep and she'd taken a stick and she was busy drawing some pictures in the dirt when she looked up and saw one of the neighbors coming down the road. Old Mother Bunting, an old wise woman who'd gone down to the market to sell her herbs, her potions, her charms and spells. Well, that day she'd also bought some carpets. So she had a carpet on her head, she had carpet under her arms, she had bags holding on either hand, and it was a hot day. And every so often she'd have to stop, put the bags down on the ground, and mop her head. Oh, it was so hot. Well, Sarah, who had a kind heart, who liked to help anyone, she went running up to old Mother Bunting and said, "Oh, Mother, are you all right? Can I help you?" "Oh, Sarah," said old Mother Bunting, with twinkly eyes, "you are such a kind, sweet girl. Yes, I could do with a little bit of help," she said. So she gave her one of the carpets, which Sarah put on her head. She also took some of the bags from old Mother Bunting, and together they walked down the road. Up the alleyway, across the square where they all lived, and into old Mother Bunting's house. There, when Sarah arrived, she put the bags down on the floor, took the carpet, put it down next to the kitchen table, and she sat down there because she used to love to visit old Mother Bunting. Oh, the kitchen. Oh, it always smelled of gingerbread. And on the shelves on the wall were bottles of pink and purple and blue glass, and inside were charms, and there were potions, and there were spells, and there were lotions, all sorts of magical things. And hanging from the ceiling were dried herbs. It was a lovely place to be. Well, old Mother Bunting smiled at Sarah and said, "You are such a good girl. I have a little gift for you," she said. And she tottered over to the shelf and she took down a small cast iron pot. She put it on the table just in front of Sarah. It was shaped like a football. It had 3 legs and a little lid. Sarah didn't get many gifts, but she looked at it and said, "Oh, thank you, but Mother and I don't have much food. We wouldn't be able to cook in that pot. I'm so sorry." And old Mother Bunting smiled and she said, "Sarah, my dear, this is no ordinary pot," she said. "This is a magical cooking pot. Whatever food you want is what you'll get. You can wish for it. So I want you to listen and watch." And old Mother Bunting said the magical words, "Cook, little pot, cook." And the pot began to sing. And as it did, Sarah heard from inside, "Glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, bubble pop." And when it reached the top, old Mother Bunting said, "Stop, little pot, stop." And when she took the lid off, oh, inside, well, it wasn't just one meal. There was chocolate ice cream, which Louis likes. There was Black Forest Gâteau, which John likes. There is chocolate cake that I like. And in there was also porridge as well. Well, what a feast. Sarah, oh, she looked at all that food and she hadn't eaten for some time. And she took hold of a spoon and she began to eat the porridge, which was creamy and golden. Oh, it seemed to melt on her tongue. And then she ate the chocolate ice cream, and then she ate the Black Forest gâteau, and then she ate the chocolate cake, and boom! By the time she was finished, she was quite full. She looked at old Mother Bunting and said, "Oh, thank you so much. This is such a wonderful gift. Oh, wait till I show my mother." And she kissed the old lady on the cheek. She grabbed hold of the pot. She ran out of the kitchen, across the square, into where she lived. Her mother was sat by the fire in the kitchen. She was busy doing some sewing. She looked up and she saw Sarah running in with the pot, and Sarah put it on the kitchen table. "Sarah," her mother said, what have we got that pot for? We haven't got anything to cook in it," she said. "Tell you what, you take it down to the market and get some money for it." "Oh, no," Sarah said. "Can't do that. Old Mother Bunting gave that to me because I helped her with taking some of the stuff that she got from the market. It's a gift, Mother. I've never received a gift before. And this is a magical cooking pot. Just you watch and listen." And as she did, she said the magical words, "Cook, little pot, cook." And the pot began to sing. And as it sang, Sarah's mother heard from inside, "Glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, glub, bubble pop." And when it reached the top, Sarah said, "Stop, little pot, stop." And the pot stopped cooking. When she took the lid off, oh, Sarah's mother could not believe her eyes, because there was chocolate ice cream, Black Forest gâteau, chocolate cake, and there was porridge. And that night, Sarah and her mother went to bed with smiles on their faces and their stomachs full. Well, they were never hungry again. But one day, Sarah had to go down to the market to help old Mother Bunting. And she left her mother in bed because her mother hadn't been too well. And her mother came down much later. And she saw the cooking pot on the table. Ooh, and she fancied a bit of porridge. So she picked up a bowl and a spoon. She said to the pot, "Cook, little pot, cook." And the pot began to sing, as it began to sing just now. And as it did, Sarah's mother heard the pot go glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, 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 bubble pop, glub, glub, bubble pop. And because she was so hungry, she took off the lid, she spooned some of the porridge into the bowl, and she began to eat it. Oh, it tasted so lovely and yummy and melted in her mouth, but she forgot something very important. What did she forget? Does anyone know? How about you, John?
Might it be possibly she forgot how to stop it?
Yes, well answered, John. Well done, indeed. And as she did, it went glub, glub, bubble pop, bubble pop. It continued to sing, the pot did, and over the sides, onto the table. And by the time she reached it, it was all around her ankles. And pot, 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 stop, 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 stop. Oh! And with that, she leapt up from the chair, and slipping and sliding, she went out through the kitchen, out through the door, into the square, and the porridge came following after her like a golden river. And she was screaming so much that all her neighbors came out from the tall, skinny houses. They all saw what was happening. All their doors were open, and because the pot was continuing to go glub, glub, bubble pop, glub, glub, bubble pop, it spilt into their houses, and they all had to slip and slide down the alleyway into the road, where they stood watching as their houses slowly filled up with rich, creamy, golden porridge. "Oh, what were we going to do? How are we going to get back in?" said Sarah's mother and all the neighbors. Oh! It was at that moment Sarah was coming back from the market with old Mother Bunting. She saw all the neighbors and her mother outside. She wondered what was wrong, and then she looked at the windows of the houses, and she could see they were bulging with porridge, and she knew what happened. She dropped her bags. She ran as fast as she could. She got as close as she could to her own house, and she shouted out, "Stop, little pot, stop!" And the pot stopped cooking. But how was everyone going to get back into their houses? Because many years ago, people didn't waste anything. So they all sighed and went, They picked up their shovels. They picked up their big bowls, their barrels, their spoons, and everything else. And they began to eat their way back into their houses. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And after that, Sarah's mother never ever did forget the magic words for the magical cooking pot. But then the neighbors never starved either, because Sarah and her mother shared their pot with all their neighbors, and everyone went to bed with smiles on their faces and stomachs full. And that is the end of the stories from the Magical Story Box.
Whoa.
But
Sharon, that was wonderful.
I've got some more. But and I'm going to share some more with you. And one I've got is of a little mouse. Look at that. And the little mouse, here she is. Ooh, isn't she? Is she a pretty mouse? She has got grey fur, a little twitchy nose, and a whippy tail, and lovely pink eyes. And the mouse wanted to get married to the strongest thing in the world. But what Miss Mouse didn't know at the time was that she was much loved by Mr. Mouse, who lived in the barn down the lane. Every time he saw Miss Mouse running up the lane, his heart would go boom, 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 boom. Oh. And so he got up the courage one day and he went up to her and said, Miss Mouse, I have something I want to ask you. Will you marry me? No, she said. I don't want to marry you. I want to marry the strongest thing in the whole wide world. And for me, the strongest thing happens to be the sun. The sun is the strongest thing in the whole wide world, and that is what I want to marry. So she went up to the sun. It was shining high in the sky above, and she sang her little song. Sun, sun, will you marry me? You're so fine and strong. Sun, sun, will you marry me? You are where I belong. And the sun looked down at her and smiled and said, Oh, Miss Mouse, that is so kind of you to ask me to marry you, but I can't marry you. He said, No. The strongest one from is the one who's stronger than me is the cloud. The cloud, because the cloud will come along and cover my smile up, and I can no longer shine my light on the earth. Marry the cloud. Ooh, Miss Mouse thought the cloud was drifting in the sky. The cloud is stronger than the sun. I will marry the cloud. So she went up to the cloud and said, Cloud, cloud, I have something to ask you. Cloud, 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 will you marry me? You're so fine and strong. Cloud, cloud, will you marry me? You are where I belong. And the clouds smile as clouds do. Miss Mouse, I can't marry you. I'm not that strong. It is the wind. The wind who is stronger than me, because when the wind blows, it blows me away. And Miss Mouse thought, Oh, the wind is stronger than the cloud is stronger than the sun. I will marry the wind. So she called the wind that was blowing the cloud away. Wind, please, I have something to ask you. And he sang, Wind, wind, will you marry me? Oh, you're so fine and strong. Wind, wind, will you marry me? You are where I belong. And the wind said, I can't marry you, Miss Mouse. No, the hill is the strongest one. Whenever I blow against the hill does not move. It is stronger than me. And little Miss Mouse thought and thought, the hill is stronger than the wind is stronger than the cloud is stronger than the sun. I will marry the hill. So it's scampering up to the base of the hill. And the little mouse sang her song. Wind, wind, well, hill, will you marry me? You're so fine and strong. Hill, hill, will you marry me? You are where I belong. And the hill said, "Oh no, Miss Mouse, I can't marry you. I'm not that strong. It's the bull that pulls the plow, that makes the furrows in the field. That is strong. It moves the earth. Go and marry the bull." And the little mouse thought, the bull is stronger than the hill. The hill is stronger than the wind. The wind is stronger than the cloud. The cloud is stronger than the sun. I will go and marry the bull. And it just so happened that the bull was next door in the field munching on his grass. And she went scampering up to him and she said, "Oh, bull, I have something to ask you." And she sang her little song to the bull. And then after she finished, the bull said, "Moo, Miss Mouse, I can't marry you. I'm not that strong. That bit of rope which is lying over the fence, that's stronger than me. Because when that's put around my neck, it takes me to places I don't want to go. Go and marry the rope." Ooh, Miss Mouse thought. The rope is stronger than the bull. The bull is stronger than the hill. The hill is stronger than the wind. The wind is stronger than the cloud. The cloud is stronger than the sun. I will marry the rope. So she went up to the fence and she sang her little song to the rope. And the rope moved and twisted around and said, "Oh, I can't marry you, Miss Mouse. No, the one who's stronger than me is Mr. Mouse, who lives in the barn at the end of the lane, because when he nibbles me, I fall to pieces. Marry him." Oh, Miss Mouse thought, so Mr. Mouse is stronger than the rope. The rope is stronger than the bull. The bull is stronger than the hill. The hill is stronger than the wind. The wind is stronger than the cloud. The cloud is stronger than the sun. Oh, my brain has really had to do a lot of thinking today, but I'll go and ask Mr. Mouse to marry me. So she went scampering and running to the barn where she met Mr. Mouse, who was very, very sad because he thought she'd married the sun. And she sang her little song to Mr. Mouse. "Mouse, mouse, will you marry me? You're so fine and strong. Mouse, mouse, will you marry me? You are where I belong." Oh. And what do you think he said? Oh, well, his heart would always go like this when he saw her. And he said, "Yes, I will marry you." And oh, and when they were married, those who were invited to the wedding were the sun, the rope, the hill, the wind, the cloud, and the bull. And they all lived happily ever after. Oh, isn't that a lovely story? Yes, yes, Mr. Mouse, Mr. and Mrs. Mouse now, because both were married and they lived happily ever after. Oh,
Oh,
I know. It really gets to me, that one
oh,
does.
it does, it does, it does.
Right. Well, I think final story is I'm going to tell you is actually one from China. And it concerns the 10 sons. Because today, where I live, it has been so hot and steamy. Oh my goodness me, it has been really incredibly hot. And every morning, Chinese story, the Zai, the goddess, gets up in the morning and she starts to flutter across the sky. And as she does, she lights up the sky above with her light. And as she does, the people would turn and they would look up to the sun, look up at Zai, and they'd feel their cheeks be warmed and they would smile at the sun. And the plants would grow, and the rivers and the lakes and the oceans would flow. And by the time the evening came, she was tired and she went straight to bed. So she told her husband one day, Dijon, who was the god of the eastern sky, "I've had enough. I am tired. I want some help. We have 10 sons, 10 children. I need some help. So in the morning, we will have to, I want one to come with me." So he agreed. The next morning, when she got up, she began to fly across the sky. And as she did, one of the sons came with her. And he flew with her mother right across the sky. So by the time evening came, both were tired and they both went to bed. But every 10 days, those sons would have a turn. And it left 9 sons back where they lived with their father, back in the mulberry tree, where they each had a little nest, their little home, their bed. And one day the 10 sons got together and said, I've had enough of this. This is so boring. We've got nothing to do. When one of our brothers goes out with our mother every single morning to light up the sky above, tell you what, let's get up early. Tomorrow morning, let's surprise our mother and let's all go out together. And they all agreed. And the very next morning, they got up early and they began to travel across the sky. And they traveled and they traveled and they traveled. And because there were 10, the sun, the light was so fierce. Everyone looked up at them and thought, oh, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that lovely? All the suns. But it was too much. The heat was fierce. The light was too bright. And they all began to find the skin was burning. They all began to look for places where they could hide underneath rocks, underneath trees to get shelter. And the suns grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And they didn't know that what they were doing was drying up the earth below, because the plants started to shrivel and all the lakes and the rivers and the ocean started to dry up and the earth began to crack as it got smaller and smaller. But they were having a wonderful time playing tag across the sky. It was wonderful. Well, Zai got up early. Got up a little bit later that morning. And when she saw what was happening with her sons, she said to her husband, Dijon, you must go to the Jade Emperor who lives on the Eternal Mountain, and you must find out if he can help us. Look what the sons are doing, those naughty children. And Dijon flew high, high up into the Eternal Mountain, where he met the Jade Emperor. He told him what was happening. The Jade Emperor saw on earth that the earth was drying up, it was cracking. You could hear these sounds of cracking and banging as it became smaller and smaller and smaller. And he sent for the master archer, Yi. And he told him what the problem was. And then he gave him 10 arrows and a beautiful bow made of red wood. And he said, you are to go and you are to discipline those sons. You are to make them behave because they are naughty. They are not listening to their parents, Dijon and Zai. And he bowed and he said he would. And he flew down from the Eternal Mountain. He flew down, down, down. He landed on a mountain on earth. And his feet burned because it was so, so hot. Because all those sons were having a wonderful time up in the sky, playing tag, playing hide and go seek over what little clouds were remained. And it filled him with fury. And there on the mountain, he took one of the arrows, he put it into the bow, and he let it go. And it flew through the sky, and it hit one of the sons, which then exploded. And one after another, he took the arrows, he fired them and fired them. And the Jade Emperor on the Eternal Mountain, he could see that it was getting down just to one son. One son. He knew one son had to remain. So, with his great arm, he reached down from the Eternal Mountain and he plucked the last arrow from the bag on the back of Yi. Yi had finished. He turned. His job was done. And he flew back to the Eternal Mountain to meet the Jade Emperor. But hanging in the sky was just one sun, which is the sun we have in the sky above. One sun looking sad, missing his brothers who had all perished under the arrows of Yi. And every morning, that one sun would rise with his mother, the sun goddess Zai, and would fly across the sky to light up the earth below. And that is the story of the 10 sons.
Thank you, Sharon.
That's all right.
Well,
Do you want me to give you another story, or is that just quite?
we're about at that's perfect. It's the perfect set. It is the perfect set, and you as children, they're in the back of the car there. Hello, right? And
wave at everybody. Hello, are we away?
Yeah, Louis waving to Romania and New York.
Well,
Everywhere, Marrakesh. Okay. So And this weekend we're going all around the world actually, because we start in England tomorrow at 2 o'clock while you're eating your lunch, if you happen to be in England, and with Sharon Jackstees. But in the evening at 6 o'clock, we've got live music and song with Anna Madika. So she's Zimbabwe, and so there'll be songs and music from Zimbabwe. Sunday morning, we've got we're going to a whole new area because we're doing a 10 o'clock show on Sunday morning with an Australian storyteller. Because in Australia, Louis, at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's 7 o'clock in the evening in Australia. So we've got Joe Henwood there, and then in the evening we go to Greece for Maria Papa, and we finish the whole thing back in England at 8 o'clock in the evening on Sunday with Lucy and Wood with Clouds of Courage. Take a break from your busy life. What? Yeah, but that's. We are busy here. I mean, I've got this magic carpet, and I take myself all around the world with it. But for now, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone that's helped with this cafe. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Don't forget, she's got a little hat on the side. I'm sure Sharon would love a little donation in it. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. And thank you very much, John. And thank you, Julio.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye.